Are you going to give a shout out on Twitter?
Okay, today's lesson, it's section 5.3 as you can see, and the title is Translating Parabolas. This first part, the part that I have written above the red dotted line, I'm really not that concerned about you getting in your notes. I just put this up here to make a connection to something that we've already talked about in the past and show you the similarities between translating these absolute value functions that we talked about earlier, these V-shapes, and how does that compare to the translation of a parabola. Okay, so let's just go back to a little bit of review from several weeks ago. This, in all variable form, is how we think about translating the absolute value function, the parent function, y equals the absolute value of x. Do you remember? Somebody raise your hand and tell me what this number that would be plugged in for h. What does that tell me about the translation of the parent v? Anna?
Opposite.
Okay, so let me ask it this way. Are we moving left or right, up or down? Okay, we would go either left or right. Okay, so this letter H represents horizontal movement, either left or right, and the K represents vertical movement, either up or down. Okay, so let's apply this. Let's use a specific example. How does this equation, y equals the absolute value of x plus 2 minus 3, tell me how the parent V shape is going to be shifted or translated? Who wants it? Yeah, go ahead.
Is it gonna go like out or down 3, I mean?
What? It's going to go down 3.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then it's gonna go over 2.
Okay, when you say over, do you mean left or right?
Right.
Okay, it's actually going to be
Left.
left. Okay, because in this function,
Oh yeah, that one, I remember that.
yeah, h has to be what number in order for it to be addition?
Negative.
It's
yeah.
negative 2, and negative is a left direction. Okay, so you remember all this from several weeks ago? This v would go left 2 and down 3. Well, we're going to introduce a new form of a quadratic equation. You're already used to standard form. You got to practice that quite a bit over the weekend. So today we're graphing out of this form called Vertex Form. And I want to show you how the translation of the parabola works very, very similarly to how we translate these absolute value functions. Notice the same variable h inside the parentheses. That means horizontal movement, left or right. This variable k represents vertical movement, either up or down. Okay? So let me just show you example 1, and I do want you to get this bottom part in your notes. This function, this vertex form, is another way of taking the parent U shape. And if you're looking at the parent U, that's just, I'll just do a rough sketch, but the vertex is at the origin, opening up like this. Well, this says, in example 1, it says to move that parent U 4 places to the right, because H, in this case, is positive 4. I would move it 4 places to the right, and then I would move it 3 places up. Which means, after I do that, I've got a vertex of 4, 3. So the reason why we call this form vertex form is because I don't have to do any calculation to find the vertex. Remember working with this, and we had to do the opposite of b over 2a to find the AOS. Then we had to plug that number back in to find the vertex. You know, that's kind of a pain, it really is. Well, the great thing about vertex form is I can just look at the function and see the vertex. The vertex will be whatever this h number is, will be the x coordinate, and whatever this k number is will be the y. Okay? And it makes finding the AOS pretty easy. So for my first example, what's the AOS?
4.
x equals 4, because whatever the x coordinate of the vertex is, that's the same number I use for the AOS. So a lot of people prefer graphing out of vertex form because it's a lot less work. And later on in this chapter, I'm going to show you how you can change standard form into vertex form. But for today, when you graph, you're going to be given vertex form from which to graph. All right, before we leave this, somebody raise your hand and tell me for example number 2, what's the vertex? What's the vertex? Lily. -2, -2. Exactly. All right, everybody see that? No? Because in this case, since we're adding, what must h have been? -2. All right, that's how we got the x coordinate of the vertex, and then the y coordinate is just whatever this number is. Once again, if there's no number out here for k, what's it understood to be?
0.
0. All right, get it? What's the AOS for this example number 2?
-2.
X equals
X equals -2.
-2. Okay? Yeah.
Why is the x minus 4? Why is it positive?
Well, again, if you compared what I have here, x minus h, to this, h literally is 4, and it's positive. Okay, and it is a little tricky. And it's just like here, you had to think opposite when you did the translation inside the absolute value walls, and the same thing is true here. Inside the parentheses, for the x coordinate of the vertex, you really have to think opposite of the way it looks.
Will that work every time?
Yeah. Yes?
For example number 2, does the 3 affect it at all, or is it just
It's a great question. It doesn't affect how you find the vertex, but it will affect eventually when we start graphing, because when we plug a number in for x, we've got to do the parentheses, then we got to do the power, then we multiply by 3. So we're going to follow PEMDAS when we start plugging a number in, but it doesn't affect how you find the vertex. Okay? Good questions. Let's do an example of graphing. So your first, I think 6 problems in the assignment are going to be pretty much like this. They're going to give you a vertex form equation, and you're going to graph from it. Well, let's see. Somebody raise your hand and tell me, to get started, what's the vertex of this? Cole? 1, 2. Very good. So, plot that point. So what does that mean the AOS is? Luke? X equals 1. AOS always goes through the vertex. Very good. And now, we're pretty much just going to take 2 different numbers for x, plug them in. We get to choose. We're going to pick a domain number and see what the associated range is. Or in other words, input to give us an output. So what would you suggest? 0. I like that choice. What do we get for y if we let x be 0? Now you do have to be careful that you follow PEMDAS. Okay, you get -1 in the parentheses. Then you do the power, so -1 squared is +1. Then you add 2. So we get the point 0, 3. And symmetry gives us a bonus point on the other side. By the way, what is the A number in this case? The number in front of the parentheses. 1. Yeah, and it's positive, so I know that the parabola has to open upward. Okay, well, we have a y for x equals 0. We have a y for x equals 1, x equals 2. What's another logical choice for x? 3. Okay, I don't have a y for x equals 3, so let's use 3 as an input. So what do we have? 3 minus 1, 2 squared, 4 plus 2, So when I do an input of 3, I get an output of 6. Use symmetry to get the other matching point, and that's our parabola. So if you did have to choose, I know there are some people that say I wouldn't choose either one, but if you did have to choose, which form would you rather graph from? Would you rather do vertex form? Okay, it's just about everybody. So how many of you would prefer standard form? Okay, I don't see any hands, so that's usually the case. That's why in some cases people will automatically just have you change standard form into vertex form, but we're going to save that for later. All right, let's try another one. How will this one open? Down. What is A? -1. Shelby, what's the vertex?
7, 10.
Awesome. Okay, and I know you probably don't have 10 marks on your y-axis. You can just go up and make a couple at the top of your y-axis arrow. So 7, 10 is here, which means the AOS is x equals 7. All right, and now we just need a couple of numbers to plug in for x, and I would recommend this. The closer you are to the AOS, the smaller the values will be for y. Okay, for example, somebody in a previous class said, well, let's try -1. Well, if you plug in -1, you're going to get something like y is -36. All right, so you're always better off choosing numbers for x that are close to the AOS, like 6. Okay, let's let x be 6. And somebody raise your hand and tell me what you get for the output or the y value. 6 minus 7, -1. You square -1. It's +1, but what is multiplying by -1 do? -1 plus 10. Okay, so for an input of 6, we get an output of 9. And we get a matching point on the other side. Okay, I need one more number for x. 8. I think, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. That came automatically. So what else?
9.
We could do 9 or we could do 5. I'm going to go with the smaller one. Not that it matters. You get the same result. 5 minus 7 is -2. What's -2 squared? 4. And this changes it to -4. -4 plus 10, 6. All right, and 2 places on the other side of the AOS. And here's our parabola. Any questions so far? Okay. Well, in problems 10 through 20 even, you're going to be doing something like this. I'm sorry, it's 14 to 20 even. Let's give you a little reference. 4 problems like this. Now we change. Instead of being given the function and we have to provide the graph, they're going to provide the graph, we have to come up with the function. And it's got to be in vertex form. Okay, so again, just as a reminder, here's vertex form. So when I'm done, our answer has to look like this. Okay, notice what we're given. You're going to be given the vertex, or if they don't tell you exactly what it is, you can look at the graph and tell what it is. But in this case, they tell us the vertex is 0, 0. Remember, when we're thinking about vertex form, the letters H and K refer to the vertex. So let's just identify these as H and K. This other point that's provided for us, that's just an ordered pair, which is like saying this is x and this is y. So really, from these two ordered pairs, I have 4 of these variables that I can replace. There's just one that I can't replace. What is it? I can't replace A. I don't have a number to replace for A, but I can replace all the others that will help me determine what A is. Okay, for example, what's Y? 1. Okay, I'm going to be solving for A. What's X? 2. H? 0. Don't forget the squared. And what's K? Okay, let's simplify all this. Do the parentheses. 2 minus 0 is 2, and then 2 squared is 4. Well, really, adding 0 doesn't affect anything. So I get 1 is 4A. So what's A? Divide both sides by 4. A is 1/4. Okay, now I'm ready to write the answer in vertex form. I'm going to replace A now because I know what it is. I knew what H and K were because of the graph. Okay, so what I'm about to write is okay. No pun intended. It's acceptable. All right. So for example, it's all right with me if this were a homework problem and you did this. That makes sense? Because of the vertex 0, 0, and we found out what A is. There's a better way of writing that. We have some unnecessary stuff. What's x minus 0? X. So what's a better way of writing x minus 0 squared? We could just do x squared. And do we really need plus 0?
So you can just do x 1 or y equals 1/4.
Yeah, I would accept either one, but I really think this is better. It's a more simplified answer, but technically they did say to write it in vertex form, so either way is okay with me. Yes?
Okay, H and K, is that just what they give you? Like, I mean,
It's either they will spell it out and say the vertex is, or you'll have to conclude that it is. You know, if this parabola opens up, then the very bottom point of the parabola has to be the vertex. Okay, anybody else? I got one more of these. So let's try this one. Same instructions. Forgot my A. We're supposed to write a vertex form quadratic equation. So we can use either one of these other points for x and y. So this ordered pair here is -2, 4. So there's my x and y. Here's my h and k. So plug everything in except for a. All right, 4 equals a. X is -2. H is -3. And K is -2. So simplify so that we can find out what A is. Well, in the parentheses, -2, this is really +3. Everybody see that? -2 plus 3 is 1, and 1 squared is still 1. 1 times A is just A. So all of that really just simplifies down to 4 equals A minus 2. Or you could have said plus -2. So what's A?
2. I mean, yeah.
6?
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, now let's finish it off. Y equals 6, because we found out that's what A is. X, now remember we're subtracting negative 3, so that's the same thing as plus 3. And then out here, adding negative 2 is the same thing as subtracting 2. So that would be my answer for this example. Okay, any questions? No one? Okay. I want you to write the assignment, and then I want to explain what I'm doing here. It's really coming from two places. This goes back to what you did over the weekend. I just didn't want to throw these word problems on you over the weekend, so I saved them for today. So 3 word problems, and then this is today's lesson, so don't forget it down here at the bottom. And what I'm doing here for these word problems, I'm going to set you up. I'm going to set you up with number 28, and then you're going to do numbers 29 and 30 just like them.
He's not in this class right now.
Okay?
All right, bye. Who? Billy Sam's.
If you want to turn to 244, so you can kind of have an idea what this is asking for, that might be good. But at least write down what I've provided for you. This function is given in number 28. It's a revenue function. Okay? So a model for a company's revenue is given. And there it is. I just wrote it down for you. Where P is the price, R is the revenue, and you're supposed to answer 2 questions. What price will maximize revenue? Well, here's the deal. You know how to do this already. You just haven't applied it to a word problem yet. Since this number A is negative, this isn't exact, but it's just a rough sketch. This has to be an upside down parabola. Would you agree? Whenever A is negative, it makes the parabola upside down, which means that the vertex is at the very top of the parabola. We have a maximum. So the answer to my red question will be, what is the AOS? Opposite of B over 2A. You definitely want to use a calculator for this one because the numbers are big. The opposite of 300 over 2 times negative 15. That will be the answer for P, or price. How do you think you're going to find R, revenue? How do you find the vertex after you found the AOS?
Plug all that.
You take the AOS number and you plug it back in, and that's exactly what you're going to do for this word problem. You're going to find the AOS, and that will be your first answer. And the second answer will be taking that number and plugging it back into the function, in this case to get R. Okay, does that make sense? Now I did 28, I kind of set it up for you, but 29 and 30 are very similar. You're doing about the same thing with different functions. Make sense? Okay, I'm going to leave you 2 or 3 minutes and see if you can get a few of these knocked out. Shout out to period 5. Good job. Nice work.